September 1941. Somewhere over the English Channel. Flight Lieutenant David Williams banks his Spitfire V into a gentle turn, scanning the sky above the bomber formation he's escorting back to England. Another sweep over France. Another day of hunting German fighters that mostly refuse to engage. The Spitfire feels good beneath him. Responsive, powerful. The same aircraft that won the Battle of Britain just a year ago. He's confident. Maybe too confident. A glint catches his eye, high and to starboard. 4 contacts diving fast. Bandits 2 o'clock high. Williams pulls the stick back, climbing to meet them. Standard procedure, get altitude, get position, engage. But something's wrong. The lead German fighter isn't climbing away like a Messerschmitt 109 would. It's diving straight through the formation. And it's wide. Radial engine, fat fuselage, stubby wings. What the hell is that? The German fighter rolls, impossibly fast, and Williams tries to follow. His Spitfire's ailerons stiffen. The German is already inverted, pulling through, coming around behind him. Williams shoves the stick forward. Dive. Maximum boost. Get out now. Cannon fire erupts around him, not the thump-thump of 20mm Hispanos. Something heavier, faster, 4 guns blazing at once. A shell tears through his port wing. Another smashes into the fuselage behind him, metal screaming. The Spitfire shudders violently. Williams hauls back on the stick, pulling out of the dive just above the wave tops. His hands shake on the controls. He risks a glance back. The German fighter is gone, already climbing back to altitude. Disappeared like a ghost. Williams nurses his damaged Spitfire back to England, lands hard at Manston, climbs out on trembling legs. The intelligence officer meets him on the tarmac. What happened? New German fighter, Williams says, fat radial engine, faster than us, rolled better than us, hit like a sledgehammer. The intelligence officer frowns. Probably a modified 109, we'll put it in the report. Williams shakes his head. It wasn't a 109, it was something else entirely. The intelligence officer walks away. Williams stares at his Spitfire. 20 cannon holes stitched across the fuselage and wings. He's one of the lucky ones. By winter, dozens more RAF pilots will meet this new hunter. Most won't be lucky. The Germans have a name for it. Verger, the butcher bird. The RAF calls it the Focke-Wulf 190, and for 18 months it will make the Spitfire obsolete. Summer 1941, Moorsel Airfield, Belgium. Oberleutnant Otto Behrens walks slowly around the new fighter parked on the apron. He's flown Messerschmitt 109s for 2 years, scored 8 victories over France and Britain. He knows what a good fighter looks like. This isn't it, at least not at first glance. The Focke-Wulf 190 looks wrong, too wide, too blunt. The radial engine makes it look like a barrel with wings attached, nothing like the sleek predatory lines of the 109. His crew chief grins. Want to take her up? Behrens climbs into the cockpit. Immediately notices the differences. Wide cockpit, excellent visibility. The canopy doesn't frame his view like the 109, it opens it up. He can see everything. The instrument panel is elegant, electric trim controls, automated systems. The stick is light in his hand. He starts the BMW 801 radial engine. It roars to life. 14 cylinders, 1700 horsepower. More power than any fighter engine in service. The takeoff is smooth, responsive, acceleration brutal. At 3,000 meters, Behrens pushes the stick hard right. The 190 snaps into a roll so fast his vision grays. Once, twice, 3 times before he centers the stick. Mein Gott, he breathes. He tries a dive, maximum speed. The 190 accelerates like a stone. No flutter, no vibration, rock solid. Pulls back, climbs. The supercharger screams. At low altitude, the 190 climbs faster than any 109 he's flown. 30 minutes later, he lands. Taxis to the apron, shuts down. His crew chief is waiting. Well, Behrens climbs out slowly, looks at the stubby, ugly fighter. It's like upgrading from a bicycle to a motorcycle, he says. The English have no idea what's coming. The Focke-Wulf 190 is the product of Kurt Tank's genius and German desperation. By 1938, the Luftwaffe knows it needs a backup to the Messerschmitt 109. A second fighter design, insurance against the 109's flaws and Willy Messerschmitt's ego. Kurt Tank, chief designer at Focke-Wulf, chooses a radical approach, air-cooled radial engine instead of liquid-cooled inline. The advantages are immediate. Radial engines are tough, can absorb tremendous battle damage, no vulnerable cooling system, no glycol leaking from punctured radiators. The BMW 801 produces 1,700 horsepower on takeoff, massive power for 1941. Tank designs the airframe around pilot survivability. Heavy armor plate around the cockpit, thicker than any fighter in service. Armored glass windscreen, protected fuel tanks. The wide-track landing gear makes it nearly impossible to ground loop. The electric trim and automated systems reduce pilot workload. And the armament, 420mm MG-151 cannon plus two 7.92mm machine guns, all mounted in the wings and fuselage firing through the propeller arc. Devastating firepower concentrated in the nose. The 190 makes its first flight in June 1939. By summer 1941, it enters service with JG-26, the Abbeville Boys, the Luftwaffe's elite unit stationed on the Channel coast. The RAF has no idea it exists. Autumn 1941, over the Pas de Calais. Squadron leader Douglas Bader leads the Tangmere wing on another fighter sweep over France. 12 Spitfire Vs looking for trouble. They find it. 6 fighters diving from the sun, but they're not 109s. "Break right," Bader calls. The Spitfires break. Standard defensive turn should force the Germans to overshoot, but these Germans don't overshoot. They roll with the Spitfires, stay behind them. Cannon fire rips into the formation. 2 Spitfires go down in the first pass, just gone. Bader tries to turn inside one of the attackers. The Spitfire V can outturn anything the Luftwaffe has. Except the German fighter doesn't try to turn. It rolls, dives, extends away. Bader's Spitfire can't follow. The fabric-covered ailerons stiffen at high speed. The 190's metal ailerons don't. By the time Bader pulls out, 3 Spitfires are smoking toward the Channel. The German fighters are climbing back to altitude, untouched. The Tangmere wing limps home. 3 aircraft lost, 0 claims. In the debriefing, the pilots try to describe what they faced. Fat fighter, radial engine, rolled faster than anything I've seen. Hit like a freight train. The intelligence officer takes notes, files the report. The Spitfire V has dominated the 109F all summer. These must be modified 109s or pilot error. But over the next 6 weeks, the losses mount. October 13th, 4 Spitfires lost, 1 damaged, 0 German losses. October 24th, 5 Spitfires lost, 1 109 claimed. November 8th, 6 Spitfires lost. 2 Germans claimed, both turn out to be 109s, not the new fighters. The RAF's fighter sweeps over France are becoming slaughter. And the Germans know it. By December 1941, the Focke-Wulf 190's superiority is mathematically clear. Speed. At 19,000 feet, the FW-190A3 reaches 382 miles per hour. The Spitfire VB tops out at 374 miles per hour. Climb. Below 20,000 feet, the 190 climbs faster. The BMW 801's power-to-weight ratio gives it acceleration the Merlin 45 can't match. Dive. The 190 dives like a brick. The Spitfire V's fabric ailerons lock up above 400 miles per hour. The 190's metal ailerons stay responsive past 450. Roll rate, the 190 rolls twice as fast as the Spitfire V. In combat, that's the difference between getting guns on target and getting killed. Firepower. 420mm cannon firing 650 rounds per minute each plus 2 machine guns. Combined weight of fire 4.44 kilograms per second. The Spitfire VB with two 20mm and four 303-inch guns delivers 2.75 kilograms per second. Armor. The 190 has thick steel plates around the cockpit and engine. The Spitfire V has minimal armor added hastily after the Battle of Britain. The only advantage the Spitfire V retains: turning radius. In a sustained turn, the lighter Spitfire can stay inside the 190's circle. But German pilots have learned, don't turn with Spitfires. Dive on them from above. Use speed and surprise. Fire one devastating burst. Extend away before they can react. The RAF's fighter sweeps become German shooting galleries. Early 1942, RAF Fighter Command Headquarters. Air Chief Marshal Sholto Douglas reads the casualty reports. The trend is unmistakable. In 1940, the Spitfire won the Battle of Britain, ruled the skies. By February 1942, RAF fighter squadrons are suffering 2-to-1 loss rates over France. Sometimes 3-to-1. The Focke-Wulf 190 has changed the equation. Douglas convenes his technical officers. What can we do? Now. Not in a year. Now. The answer: modify existing Spitfire verses. The modifications are crude but effective. Clip the wings, remove the elliptical wingtips, reduces span from 36 feet 10 inches to 32 feet 6 inches, loses high-altitude performance but improves roll rate and diving speed. Crop the supercharger. Modify the Merlin 45 supercharger impeller blades. Optimizes for low-altitude performance where the 190 dominates. Clap it back together with whatever spare parts are available. The result? The Spitfire LF-MKV. Low-altitude fighter. Pilots nickname it clipped, cropped, and clapped. At low altitude, the LFV is marginally better than the standard Mark IV. Maximum speed climbs to 355 miles per hour at 5,900 feet. Roll rate improves. Dive acceleration increases. But it's still not enough. The LFV is faster than the standard Mark IV. The FW-190 is still faster than the LFV. The LFV rolls better. The FW-190 rolls better still. The LFV has more firepower than earlier marks. The FW-190 has more firepower than the LFV. Squadron leader Alan Deere flies one of the first LFVs in combat, May 1942 over Abbeville. He bounces a pair of FW-190s from above. Perfect attack position. Closes to 300 yards. Opens fire. The lead 190 snaps into a vertical roll and dives away. Deere tries to follow. The clipped wings help. He stays with the German longer than a standard Mark IV could, but not long enough. The 190 pulls out of the dive at wave top height and accelerates away. Deere's Spitfire can't catch it. On the way home, Deere's number 2 asks over the radio, "Did we get him?" "No," Deere replies. "The clipped wings help, but the 190 still does everything better except turn, and they won't turn with us." Back at base, Deere writes in his combat report, "The FW-190 is superior to the Spitfire VB in all aspects except turning circle. Modifications improve the situation but do not eliminate the German advantage. A new Spitfire mark is urgently required." Fighter Command forwards the report to the Air Ministry. The Air Ministry forwards it to Supermarine and Rolls-Royce. The clock is ticking. 23rd June 1942, RAF Pembrey, Wales. Oberleutnant Armin Faber climbs out of his Focke-Wulf 190A3 and immediately realizes his mistake. He's just landed at an RAF base. In the confusion of combat over the Bristol Channel, disoriented after attacking British fighters, Faber mistook the Welsh coastline for France, flew north instead of south, landed at what he thought was a friendly airfield. The British soldiers running toward him with rifles suggest otherwise. Faber burns his codebooks. Tries to set the aircraft on fire, fails. The British capture the first intact Focke-Wulf 190 in Allied hands. 3 days later, the 190 sits in a hangar at the Royal Aircraft Establishment, Farnborough. British engineers swarm over it like archaeologists examining an alien artifact. Captain Eric Brown, the Royal Navy's chief test pilot, is one of the first to fly it. His report transforms RAF thinking about the German fighter. The BMW 801D2 engine is a masterpiece. 14 cylinders, air-cooled fuel injection, 1700 horsepower. Automatic engine management reduces pilot workload dramatically. The electric trim system is years ahead of our manual system. The cockpit layout is superb, visibility excellent. The wide-track undercarriage makes it nearly impossible to ground loop, a significant advantage over the Spitfire's narrow gear. The armament is devastating. 4 MG 150-120 cannon with 250 rounds per gun plus 2 machine guns, all electrically fired. When all weapons fire simultaneously, the aircraft shudders. I cannot imagine being on the receiving end. The armor protection is comprehensive. Thick steel around the pilot's seat and head. The fuel tanks are self-sealing. The radial engine can absorb significant damage and continue running. Brown's most damning conclusion. Below 22,000 feet, the FW-190 is superior to the Spitfire VB in speed, climb, dive, and roll. Our pilots face a technological disadvantage that courage alone cannot overcome. The report lands on Air Chief Marshal Douglas's desk like a bomb. He already knows the loss rates. Now he knows why. The Focke-Wulf 190 isn't just better than the Spitfire V. It's better in almost every measurable way. The captured 190 reveals German engineering philosophy. Design around the pilot. The Spitfire is an evolution of 1930s thinking. Beautiful, elegant, but compromised by its legacy systems. The 190 is clean sheet modern, every system designed for combat efficiency. Engine management. The FW-190's Commando Durette command device automatically adjusts mixture, propeller pitch, and boost pressure. The pilot just moves one throttle lever. The Spitfire requires the pilot to manually adjust multiple controls. Weapons. The 190's 4 cannon are mounted close to the center line. Shells converge at 300 meters. Concentrated firepower. The Spitfire's wing-mounted weapons spread out. Less concentration, more dispersion. Controls. The 190's electric trim responds instantly. The Spitfire's manual trim wheel requires constant adjustment. In high G combat, that distraction kills. Visibility. The 190's bubble canopy provides 360-degree vision. The Spitfire's framed canopy has blind spots. British engineers study every detail, take measurements, run calculations. Their conclusion? We cannot convert the Spitfire V into something competitive with the FW-190 through modifications alone. We need a new mark with a fundamentally more powerful engine. That engine already exists. It's been in development for months. The question is, will it arrive in time? August 19th, 1942. Operation Jubilee. Dieppe, the largest Allied raid on occupied France. 6,000 Canadian troops, 50 Churchill tanks, 8 destroyers, and overhead 74 RAF squadrons, including 48 Spitfire squadrons. The Luftwaffe responds with everything. Messerschmitt 109s, Focke-Wulf 190s, bombers. The Meuse air battle over Dieppe becomes the largest since the Battle of Britain. For the RAF, it becomes a bloodbath. Flight Lieutenant Johnny Johnson leads his section over the beaches. Spitfire IXs, not Verses. His squadron is one of the first equipped with the new mark. Below him, Canadian soldiers are dying on the beach. Above him, German fighters swarm like angry hornets. Johnson spots 4 FW-190s diving on a damaged bomber. Woody section, follow me down. The Spitfire IXs dive. For the first time in a year, Johnson feels like he has a chance. The 190s don't see them coming. Johnson closes to 250 yards behind the leader, centers the gun sight, fires. Cannon shells tear into the 190's fuselage and wing root. Pieces fly off. Smoke pours from the engine. The 190 rolls inverted and dives into the channel. Johnson's wingman gets another. The remaining two 190s brake hard and dive for the deck. Johnson tries to follow. His Spitfire IX keeps up, barely. At low level, the 190s are still faster, but they're not invincible anymore. The day's accounting is brutal. RAF losses: 106 aircraft destroyed. 60 Spitfires, 28 Hurricanes, 8 bombers. Luftwaffe losses: 48 aircraft destroyed, 23 fighters, 25 bombers. 2-to-1 kill ratio in Germany's favor, but there's a hidden truth in the numbers. Of the 60 Spitfires lost, 48 are Mark versus only 12 are the new Mark IXs. The Spitfire IX squadrons claim 15 German fighters destroyed, against 12 losses, roughly even. The Spitfire V squadrons claim 8 German fighters, against 48 losses, 6-to-1 ratio, massacre. The data is clear: the Spitfire IX changes the equation. But in August 1942, only 4 squadrons have them. 44 squadrons still fly the obsolete Mark V. The crisis continues. Spring 1942, Rolls-Royce, Derby. While RAF pilots die over France, engineers at Rolls-Royce work 16-hour days on the solution. The Merlin 61 engine, the breakthrough. 2-stage, 2-speed supercharging. Previous Merlin engines used single-stage superchargers, simple, effective at low altitude, but performance dropped off above 20,000 feet. The Merlin 61 adds a second supercharger stage, compresses the air twice before it enters the engine, maintains power at high altitude, increases power at all altitudes. The numbers are dramatic. Merlin 45, Spitfire V, 1,470 horsepower at 9,850 feet. Merlin 61, Spitfire IX, 1,565 horsepower at 12,250 feet. But it's more than just horsepower. The 2-stage supercharger gives the engine a broader power band, more power everywhere. The Merlin 61 requires significant airframe modifications. The intercooler, which cools compressed air between supercharger stages, needs its own radiator. The engine is longer, heavier. The center of gravity shifts. Supermarines engineers work through the changes. Strengthen the fuselage to handle increased stress, add a second radiator under the starboard wing. Symmetrical radiator layout. Coolant under port wing, coolant and intercooler under starboard adjust. Undercarriage geometry for new center of gravity. Fit 4-bladed propeller to absorb the extra power. The result, Spitfire Mark IX. Technically, it's an interim solution. A Mark V airframe with a Mark IX engine rushed into production while Supermarine designs the proper Marks VII and the VIII. But sometimes interim solutions become permanent. The first Spitfire IX flies in early 1942. Test pilots report dramatic improvements. Maximum speed, 408 miles per hour at 25,000 feet rate of climb. 4,100 feet per minute service ceiling. 43,000 feet range. 980 miles with drop tanks. More important than raw numbers, the Spitfire IX is faster than the FW-190 above 21,000 feet, climbs better above 20,000 feet, matches it in dive. At low altitude, the 190 still has advantages, but not overwhelming ones. The Spitfire IX makes the fight even. Production begins immediately. But aircraft production is slow. Each Spitfire takes weeks to build. The RAF has dozens of squadrons. Converting them all will take months. July 1942, 4 squadrons equipped with Spitfire IXs. August 1942, 7 squadrons. September 1942, 12 squadrons. It's not enough, not yet. Over France, FW-190s still rule the sky below 20,000 feet, but their reign is ending. August 30th, 1942, over Gravelines. Oberleutnant Joseph Pips Priller leads his swarm of FW-190s at 15,000 feet. Below, British bombers drone toward their target. Above, Spitfire escort. Perfect. The 190s have bounced this setup 100 times. Dive on the bombers from above and behind. One pass. Maximum carnage. Climb away before the escorts react. Priller rolls inverted and dives. 4,000 feet above him, Pilot Officer Barry Heath in Spitfire IX EN-398 sees them coming. Bandits, 6 o'clock high, 4 190s diving. Heath rolls his Spitfire and dives to intercept. The Merlin 61 screams. The Spitfire accelerates like never before. Priller lines up on a bomber. Range is closing, 500 yards. 400 yards. Something flashes past his canopy. Too fast, too close. A Spitfire, but it's keeping up with his dive. That's impossible. Priller brakes hard right. The Spitfire follows. Still closing. Priller reverses left. The Spitfire cuts inside his turn. Cannons flash. Shells slam into Priller's 190. Wing root, fuselage, engine cowling. Priller firewall the throttle and extends away in a dive. His 190 is still faster down low, but not by much, not like before. He glances back. The Spitfire isn't following. It's climbing back to altitude, easily, rapidly. Back at base, Priller's crew chief counts the holes, 12 hits. "What happened?" he asks. Priller pulls off his helmet, wipes sweat from his face. "New Spitfire," he says, "faster. Climbs like a rocket. Stayed with me in the dive." Can you beat it? Priller thinks. In the past year, he's shot down 16 Spitfires. Easy kills. Target practice. "I don't know," he admits. "Maybe not." By autumn 1942, German fighter pilots notice the change. The Spitfires escorting bombers are different. Longer, noses, symmetrical radiators, 4-bladed props, and they're dangerous. Lieutenant Heinz Knoke writes in his diary, "The new Spitfires are faster at altitude. We can no longer dive away so easily. Some of my pilots are afraid to engage them." The psychological shift is profound. For a year, FW-190 pilots attacked with impunity. The Spitfire V was prey. Now they face equals, sometimes superiors. The fear goes both ways. March 1944. Over Italy, squadron leader Neville Duke banks his Spitfire LFO'd into a climbing turn. Below him, the Italian countryside spreads green and brown. Above him, 3 Bf-109s try to gain altitude. Duke's squadron, number 145 Squadron, converted to Spitfire VIII 6 months ago. The Mark VIII is essentially a refined Mark IX. Same Merlin 60 series engine, strengthened airframe, better fuel capacity. Duke loves it. "To my mind, the LF-8 was one of the finest marks of Spitfire ever produced," he'll write later. "They could more than hold their own with the Me-109 and the FW-190. Today he'll prove it. The 109s see him coming. Break formation, dive for speed. Duke follows. The Spitfire's Merlin 66 howls. The supercharger kicks in at 14,000 feet. Power surges. At 10,000 feet, Duke closes to 600 yards. Opens fire, long burst, deflection shot. Strikes on the leader's fuselage. Bright flash, pieces fly off. The 109's canopy separates. The pilot bails out. The other 2 109s dive and climb steeply, trying to use their supercharger's altitude advantage. But Duke's Spitfire VIII has altitude advantage too. He climbs easily, closes to 200 yards behind the second 109, fires again, 2-second burst, dead astern. The 109 catches fire, the pilot bails immediately, third 109 disappears into clouds. Duke circles once, watches both parachutes descend, 2 kills, 0 losses, he keys the radio. "All Spitfires, this is Duke. We're headed home. Good show today." His wingman responds, "Sir, those were 109s. Any 190s? "Not today," Duke says, "but the 1R90 pilots know what we're flying now. They're more careful." By mid-1943, the kill ratio has reversed. 1941, early 1942, FW-190 dominates. 2 or 3 Spitfires lost for every 190. Mid-1942, Spitfire IX evens the odds, roughly 1-to-1. Late 1942-1943, Spitfire IX and VIII gain advantage. 2 190s lost for every Spitfire. 1944, Spitfire dominance. 3 or 4 190s for every Spitfire. The numbers tell the story of technological advantage lost and regained. August 27, 1943, over northern France. Flight Lieutenant Hugh Pat Lardner Burke scans the sky from his Spitfire IX, MH-434. He's flying Red 3 in the Hornchurch wing escorting American B-17s to bomb a V weapon site at Watton. 22,000 feet, clear sky, perfect hunting weather. Below and ahead, 60 fortresses drone toward their target. Flak bursts appear around them, black puffs, some accurate, most not. Red leader, this is Blue 2, 9 190s 5 o'clock low diving on the bombers. Lardner Burke spots them. FW 190s, from JG2 and JG26. Coming in fast and loose, standard hit-and-run attack. Wing Commander Crawford Compton's voice crackles. Red and yellow sections cover, blue and green sections take them. Lardner Burke stays high, watches, waits. The 190s fire into the bombers. One B-17 trails smoke. The 190s start to climb away, their usual escape maneuver. But this time, Spitfires are waiting. Blue section hits them from above. 3 190s go down in the first pass. One 190 breaks toward Lardner Burke. The German pilot sees him, turns hard right, tries to dive away. Lardner Burke rolls and follows. The 190 is fast in the dive, but not fast enough. Lardner Burke closes from 350 to 300 yards, steady, smooth. The Spitfire IX stays with the German fighter perfectly. He fires. 2-second bursts slightly off angle. Cannon shells walk across the 190's starboard wing and tail. The 190 shudders, turns sharply starboard, dives steeper. Lardner Burke follows, closes to dead astern. 300 yards. Another burst, 4 seconds, the cannons hammer, the Spitfire vibrates. Strikes all over the 190's fuselage and wings. Smoke pours from the engine. The German fighter's nose drops. Lardner Burke fires again, 2 seconds, 300 yards, astern. The 190 rolls inverted, dives vertically, impacts the ground near Audric. No parachute. 8 days later, September 5th, Lardner Burke gets another. The Hornchurch wing is escorting bombers to Ghent. 20 FW-190s bounce them out of the sun. Classic German tactics. Lardner Burke's yellow section climbs to intercept. 190 turns in front of him. The German pilot sees the Spitfire, does a quick roll, heads for the deck. Lardner Burke fires at 500 yards, deflection shot, 5 degrees off. Hits on the engine and cockpit. He closes to 400 yards, fires again. 3 seconds, dead astern. More strikes. The 190's cockpit explodes, smoke and flame. The German fighter turns over, spins, crashes. Lardner Burke's combat report notes ammunition expenditure. 132 rounds of 20mm cannon. 274 rounds of 303-inch machine gun. 2 190s destroyed in 9 days. The hunter has become the hunted. Late 1943, the technological race continues. The Luftwaffe isn't finished. German engineers respond to the Spitfire IX with the FW-190D, the Dora, or long nose. Out goes the BMW 801 radial engine. In comes the Junkers Jumo 213 inline engine, liquid-cooled, 1,750 horsepower, longer nose, better high-altitude performance. The FW-190D is fast, 426 miles per hour at 21 to 650 feet. Climbs to 30,000 feet in under 11 minutes. Squadron leader Neville Duke faces them in 1944. He notes in his autobiography, "The long-nosed Focke-Wulf with the Daimler-Benz engine was a formidable aircraft, but by then the RAF has the Spitfire 14, Rolls-Royce Griffon 65 engine, 2,050 horsepower, 5-bladed propeller, top speed, 448 miles per hour. The Spitfire Montmorency is so powerful it feels like it wants to rotate around the propeller instead of the propeller rotating around the aircraft. Pilots report fighting the torque on takeoff. But in the air, it's devastating. The FW-190D is formidable. The Spitfire Sotroni is more formidable. The race continues. By war's end, the production numbers tell their own story. FW-190, all variants, approximately 20,000 produced Spitfire IX. 5,665 produced the Spitfire IX. The interim solution rushed into service in 1942, becomes the most produced Spitfire variant, serves longer than any other mark, fights on every front from 1942 to 1945. The aircraft that saved the RAF from the FW-190's dominance becomes the defining Spitfire of the war. Today, an FW-190 and a Spitfire IX sit in museums across from each other. Silent, preserved. Witnesses to a technological arms race that defined air warfare. The FW-190 is still impressive. Wide radial cowling, stub-nosed, aggressive. You can see why it terrified RAF pilots in 1941. The Spitfire IX looks elegant, long nose, graceful wings, four-bladed propeller. You can see why it restored British confidence in 1942. Neither aircraft was perfect, both were excellent. Each represented the pinnacle of their nation's engineering at a specific moment. But that moment didn't last. In 1941, the Focke-Wulf 190 appeared and made the Spitfire V obsolete overnight. German pilots dominated the sky. RAF pilots died in superior German fighters. 18 months later, the Spitfire IX made the FW-190 vulnerable. British pilots regained the advantage. German pilots learned fear. By 1944, the FW-190D appeared. Then the Spitfire 14th, back and forth, each innovation answered by counter-innovation. The cycle accelerated throughout the war. No advantage lasted, no design stayed supreme. The human cost was staggering. In 1941, RAF pilots climbed into Spitfire Vs knowing they were outmatched. Some refused to fly. Some broke down. Many died. In 1942, FW-190 pilots who felt invincible discovered they weren't. They died too. Technology determined who lived and who died, but advantage was always temporary. The engineering race reveals deeper truths. Kurt Tank's genius produced the FW-190. Radical thinking, revolutionary design. It worked brilliantly. R.J. Mitchell's genius, and those who followed him at Supermarine, produced the Spitfire's adaptability. The airframe could accept more powerful engines, grow, evolve. That flexibility proved more valuable than any single design choice. Rolls-Royce's genius produced the Merlin 61. Two-stage supercharging, the innovation that turned the tide. Britain's advantage wasn't better initial design, it was capacity to evolve rapidly. The Spitfire went through more than 20 major variants during the war, each addressing specific threats. In museums, we preserve these aircraft as artifacts, relics of a technological arms race. But their real legacy is the lesson they teach. Superior equipment saves lives, inferior equipment costs lives. And technological advantage is always temporary. The FW-190 dominated for 18 months, the Spitfire IX dominated for 2 years. Then came jets and missiles, and the piston engine fighter became obsolete entirely. Evolution never stops. The moment you assume superiority will last is the moment you lose it. The RAF learned that lesson in 1941 when the FW-190 appeared. The Luftwaffe learned it in 1942 when the Spitfire IX appeared. Both sides paid for the lesson in blood. The butcher bird roared, the Spitfire answered, and the sky was never the same.